Good morning. I want to begin by thanking Pastor Blake and you, my church family, for giving me the opportunity this morning to share with you my stories of faith. These stories are true to life and clearly exemplifies how important prayer and faith in God is during our everyday lives. Before sharing my stories with you, I would like to begin by giving a brief timeline on how my stories of faith evolved. It began in late 2019 when my wife for 56 years, Barbara Ann, was diagnosed with early stages of dementia that later manifested itself into full-blown Alzheimer's, eventually causing her death in January of 2023. The year 2023 and the early part of 24 was probably one of the most difficult and dark times of my life. In addition to losing the love of my life, plus enduring months of grief and heartbreak, on November the 2nd, 2023, I was diagnosed with lymphoma cancer. This is a cancer of the lymph nodes. Plans were immediately being made for me to be treated at the MD Anderson Center in Houston, Texas. Needless to say, after losing my wife and then shortly after being diagnosed with cancer, I could not fully understand why. However, my stories of faith that I am going to share with you this morning would explain how prayers and faith in God helped me get across to the other side of that turbulent river of grief, turmoil, and pain. With that said, I will begin sharing with you my stories of faith. I framed my stories into three parts, giving each part a name like you would chapters in a book. I named the first story Angel or Passerby. The second story are my prayers being heard. And the third story, a treasured Bible verse. My first story, Angel or Passerby, begins after Barbara's funeral and the graveside service. I wanted to follow an old tradition, and that was to go back to the graveside later that day. However, I did not get to go as planned. We still had many relatives and friends staying over till the next morning. However, the next day, around mid-morning, I was able to go to her graveside, and when I arrived, I literally broke down. I did not know that a grown man could cry that hard and shed that many tears, but I did. After regaining my composure, I shared with her many of the good time memories that we had together, and they were many. I wanted to let her know that she was going to be sorely missed and that I would love her for the rest of my life, and that no one on this planet would ever take her place. Before leaving her graveside, I literally opened up my heart to God, asking Him to please help me with my grief, sorrow, and heartbreak. As I finished my prayer and straightened up the flowers on her grave, I went over to my Tahoe. And when I got in the Tahoe, I immediately noticed that the passenger seat was empty, where she would usually sit. And I literally broke down again. As I was wiping my tears away, there was a loud knock on my window. At first, it startled me. When I looked around to see who it was, I noticed that it was a young man sitting on a bicycle. He had a light olive complexion, dark hair, brown eyes, and could talk very good English. He was sitting on a common everyday bicycle, similar to the one I used to have when I was a kid growing up. The bike was not hyped up with big wheels or any other features out of the ordinary. I could tell he was wanting to communicate with me. So I reluctantly rolled down the window, and he began telling me that everything was going to be okay, and that he knew all about the grief and pain that I was going through when losing a loved one. I could tell as we continued talking that he was beginning to tear up and cry with me. As I was sharing his peace and solace with me, I could feel a comfort and a peace within me, easing my grief and pain. After a few more minutes, we departed. He went his way, and I went my way. The profound thing about this is, I have never seen this young man again in the cemetery or anywhere within the confines of Giddings proper. Every time I go to the cemetery to visit with Barbara and my parents, I look for him. But he is nowhere to be seen. I took it one step further. I approached the city employees who manicure and maintain the cemetery, and I asked them if they have ever seen a young man on a bicycle that fits this young man's description. And they told me, "Mr. Wolf, we have never seen a young man as you described." I told them that if they ever did, to please call me. It has been a year and a half now, and I still have yet to receive a call. The questions still remain open. Was this an angel? I cannot answer that. Was this a passerby? I cannot answer that either. All I know is that this young man reached out and gave me the comfort and peace that I needed at the most crucial time. I firmly believe that God used this young man in answer to my prayer that I asked for before leaving Barbara's gravesite that morning. I will always treasure this moment. For as long as I shall live, God works in us in mysterious ways. The second story, where my prayers being heard, begins. One morning after having my breakfast, I could tell when looking outside that it was going to be a beautiful day. So I decided to have another cup of coffee out on the patio. There wasn't a cloud in the sky. The wind was calm. The birds were singing in the trees above me. Just an absolute pristine morning. After several minutes or so, and taking in the beautiful landscape that God created that morning, and enjoying my coffee, I decided to ask God to show me a sign, something significant during the day that would let me know that He was listening to my prayers. After several minutes or so went by, and about to finish my coffee, I observed a large butterfly flying directly toward me. It briefly hovered and landed on the cushion right next to me. After it landed, I recognized that it was one of the most beautiful monarch butterflies that I have ever seen. As it was perched on the cushion next to me, it was arching its wings back and forth, as if it was trying to tell me that it, the butterfly, was a sign from God that I asked for, confirming that God was hearing my prayers. Simply said, it was like a fairy tale come true. Less than a minute or so passed by, and the butterfly picked up its wings and flew off into space, never to be seen again. In conclusion, this story, in my opinion, has three significant parts. One, it confirmed that God was hearing my prayers. Two, my request for a significant sign had been answered in such a timely manner. And three, it was the only butterfly in my backyard that morning. God is good. I would like to make this suggestion to each and every one of you. If you are ever out by yourself somewhere in a pristine environment, pause for a moment, take a breath, just sit back, listen carefully, and observe the landscape. God is all around you. The third and final story, that treasured Bible verse, begins. As I was preparing my luggage to make the trip to MD Anderson to start my cancer treatments, I needed an item out of one of the bedrooms. This is a bedroom that I am in and out of almost every day, and it is highly maintained. After finding the item that I was looking for in the bedroom, and on my way out, I happened to look down, and there was a small snidbit piece of paper laying on the carpet floor. I would compare this small piece of paper to what you get inside a fortune cookie. As I further observed the small piece of paper, I noticed that it had something written on it. As I began reading, it nearly took my breath away. It was a Bible verse that I truly needed at that exact moment in time. Isaiah 40:31, and it reads, "But those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint." How fitting, how truly fitting that was. To this day, I do not know how that Bible verse got there on the floor. However, I am confident and truly believe that God and a beautiful angel by the name of Barbara Ann had something to do with this. It was a way to let me know that there would be divine intervention along the way, helping me to get to the other side of this dreadful and life-threatening disease. This Bible verse truly gave me the strength, it gave me the confidence, and it gave me courage that I needed, not knowing what I was faced with regarding the cancer treatments. Remarkably, after only 4 weeks of treatments, the mass that formed on the right side of my neck, characteristic of lymphoma, had completely disappeared. At this point in time, I was contemplating going back home and being treated locally if needed. I asked God if He would help me make that decision, and together we decided that it would be okay to do. I am happy to report that after several PET scans and extensive blood work at Texas Oncology in Austin, Texas, my cancer remains in remission, and that no further treatments are recommended, only periodic checkups. I have truly been blessed in so many ways. In closing, I would like to end with the following. It would have been so easy for me to lose my faith in God during this dark time in my life, but I chose not to. Instead, I chose to embrace the Lord even more. I truly believe that God left His handprint inside my heart when I encountered the young man on the bicycle in the cemetery, the butterfly in my backyard, and that treasured Bible verse. I am confident that God continues to walk along beside me, hand in hand, giving me this second chance in life. Do I believe in prayer? Simply put, you betcha. You betcha. Prayer and faith in God go hand in hand and play an integral part in our everyday lives. Again, I want to thank you for giving me the privilege and opportunity to share with you my stories of faith. May God bless each and every one of you. Take care and be safe. Thank you very much.